Right. Let's give anybody to it.
No.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ally, that's roll call. Okay. So the purpose of this meeting is to vote on academic items or any other matters properly presented. I'd like a motion, if I could, to table 3 personnel to the next voting meeting. Second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, we pass the personnel 3, that's A through J, to the next voting meeting. Okay, then I'm going to take items 4, A and B, which is academics. Can I get a motion? Motion. Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, few of things. One is for the Bloomsburg College of Business and High School Division.
Yes,
That's the competition one.
correct.
Yes.
And then the other one is
That's for the Generation Next students. That's a group of
College
students.
business.
These are
College
college.
of Business. And that's paid for by them anyway.
That's correct.
Yep.
Thank you.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries for 4, A and B. Number 5, is there anybody from the public to comment on agenda items only? Seeing none. Is there any interested citizens on non-agenda items? No? Okay, I get a motion to adjourn. Second? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Meeting adjourned at 6:03. Okay, Frank, I'm going for the competition now. All right. Now. So. Okay. All right. Call the standing committee meeting to order. 6:04. Right. Ally, roll call again, right? Okay, so we're going to start with athletics. And since Mr. Obi's not here, I will say welcome to Jim and Chris Eckler.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing me a few minutes to present some medals to some of our scholar athletes and give you a quick winter athletic season report. At the top there, we discussed it before, the Athletic Disclosure Act, $121,572 brought in by our booster club last year. Again, that report is on our website. Our SAC Council students there, senior male Matt Horace, senior female Dominique Catalano. Our junior males are Christopher Hess, junior female Michaela Roach, and Leanna Deegan. Our scholar athletes this evening, I will represent or bring them up here to be represented and get their medal. And the first one, I believe Casey Mordick did come in. What I'll do is I'll give you your medal. Congratulations. Thank you. And what I'd like you to do is say a few words, let them know where you're going to go to school, the sports you participated in, and then maybe we're going to go to college and some things like that. Okay? Go ahead, Casey.
Well, this year I was captain of the varsity cheerleading game day and competition team. So for that, we supported the football team, girls and boys basketball, and the wrestling team. For game day and for competitions, we placed first at districts and leagues, competed at states and at nationals down in Disney. And I plan on attending the University of Notre Dame to study mechanical engineering.
Great. Great job.
Thank you, Casey. Connor Fahey, our boys basketball scholar athlete. However, he's at Northampton right now getting wet in the rain. Boys lacrosse player also. Next we'll have girls basketball player Olivia George come up. You know Olivia. She's been here a few times at a few meetings. Congratulations. Go ahead. Floor is all yours.
Hi. In the fall, I run cross country. In the winter, obviously, I play basketball. And in the spring, the past 2 years, I've been running track, but I decided to take up lacrosse, and it's my first year. Some events in the basketball season, we were runner-ups in the EPC championship. We won the district championship, and we lost, unfortunately, in the first round of states, but it was a successful year overall. In the fall, I will be attending Penn State to study medicine.
Our male swimmer scholar athlete is Galen Deary. I did see Galen come in. Come on up. You can go swim out in the creek right now. Congratulations. Go ahead.
Hey, I've been on the team for 4 years, districts 3 years, varsity letter every year. This year, I was the only senior boy, so that was kind of rough. We had a bunch of juniors, a crazy, huge freshman class coming to take the charge in the next coming years. Hopefully I'll get out to Portland University in the next couple years, but I'll probably end up doing that at Northampton Community College.
What are you going to study?
General studies.
General studies, okay. Thank you. Okay. And our female swimmer is Alexa Rosa. Come on up. Congratulations.
Hi, I'm Alexa Rosa. I've been swimming on the team for 4 years. This year I was the girls swim team captain. I'm so proud of our team this year. I'm going to be studying animal behavior at Towson University, and that's pretty much it.
Last but not least, our last winter athlete, wrestling, Ethan DiRenzo. Ethan, come on up. Congratulations.
Well, I'll start off with the wrestling team this year. We did pretty great. We have, as we all know, a new coach, so that was a little bit of a different change, but it turned out to be one for the better. We did great as a team, I feel like. We ended up getting 4th at the district tournament as a whole, and many of us ended up going on to make the regionals and states. For me, I ended up getting 4th at districts, and I ended up getting 6th at regionals. And for college, I'm going to be going ahead and continue to pursue wrestling, and I'm going to be going for a master's in cybersecurity and political science.
What are you going to take?
Oh, Worcester Polytechnical Institute.
Congratulations.
Read your tweets, like, get a lot of tweets come through.
You can do the work and I'll
Great job.
do
Yeah. Great job.
And again, thank you to the parents of the scholar athletes and the athletes themselves for representing Easton in a very positive way. Okay, next slide. Winter athletic teams, we have 18 individual teams. The numbers are listed right there, the players that were kept on the teams. Okay, next slide. And there's swimming and diving, indoor track, and wrestling. And this year, we did not have enough wrestlers to separate into two teams, so we kept them on one team. Total number of winter athletes were 383, and about 25 cuts for players that left the team throughout the season. Some winter season highlights are listed there. Varsity cheerleading, very successful this year. The league and district championship. And they went on to Hershey to compete, and they also went to UCA Nationals. Abby Heimbach, one of our cheerleaders, was selected to cheer at the Big 33 All-Star Game, which will take place out in Hershey later on in June. Okay, boys basketball, their record is there. They made the first round of District 11 playoffs. Girls basketball, as was stated, finished second in the EPC, our league, and then we finished first in District 11 in the 6A championship. And then we lost in the first round of the PIAA state playoffs. Okay, next one. Indoor track and field, participated in a variety of meets in Pennsylvania and New York. Also went on to the state championships in Penn State. Kate Wilshaw, her finish there. Tawheed Muhammad there was listed, and the girls 4x4 is also listed in your place finishes. Swimming and diving for boys and girls, again, the records listed, and in the District 11 places there. And as Ethan had mentioned, the wrestling team, 14-6, made it to the dual meet tournament, and multiple wrestlers moved on into those playoffs. Okay, next slide. So winter trophies, as we said, District 11 girls basketball and cheerleading. Okay, next. Academic eligibility, again, that is listed there by week. And the next slide, at the bottom there, we have 27 total athletes ineligible as we checked the weekly eligibility on academics. That number is a little bit lower than last year. And again, Karen Trinkle and myself and a few others have been that every 2 or 3 months going on a lot of the academic and guidance work for the athletes. And that relationship has gotten a lot better and a lot more communication. So hopefully we'll have another meeting shortly then, right? So that's been a big help to us in the athletes. Okay, sports medicine department, 390 athletes. We checked their physicals, collected that much money there. Average daily treatments, again, are listed from the athletic training staff. And we have an intern, Shannon Tabby, who is with us from East Stroudsburg University. And we've done that the last few years, helping out sort of those student trainers. St. Luke's, again, great relationship with them. They send us 2 trainers. Dr. Hercules comes on a weekly basis to look at our athletes. And then Seth Eisenberg and Chris Fisher are physical therapists that check the baseball players because they're finding out there's a lot of arm injuries in baseball, and higher than most sports because of the motion of throwing. And there's actually a pitch count rule this year in the PIAA that is strictly kept in order to reduce the number of baseball injuries. So thank you to them and what they did to screen our kids. And we continue with James Farley, Mike, and Eric with the sports performance training in the weight room, helping our kids get ready for the season. Okay, next slide. The first 5 or 6 signed their letters already of intent to go to college. Alyssa Repsher and Hannah Wheeler will sign their letters of intent on April 19th at 9 o'clock in the morning in the gym lobby of the high school. So their parents, their teammates, and that come down there and they're getting athletic money to go to college for their hard work. Okay. Our Wall of Fame banquet, some details there. That is coming up shortly at the end of the month. About 350 tickets. We're almost sold out, except for a few tickets remaining. We've invited the team captains so they can go and be part of the history of Easton Athletics. Okay. And then the last slide is Mr. Simonetta's slide. It's the money. Unfortunately, this year we're just a little bit short right now. I'm waiting for Phil to finish that report. Once that is finished, I'll have an exact number. But right now we're at about $165,000 in revenue, and we anticipate usually about $200,000 in revenue. So some of that money is still coming in a little bit, and once that Easton Peabody report is done, when I do my spring report, that will have all the final information on it. Okay, that concludes my report, unless anyone has any questions. Again, thank you to the scholar athletes and their parents for everything that they do. We appreciate it and we wish you luck in the future. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Is there anyone from the public to be heard on athletic agenda items? Seeing none, there's no items on this. Yes?
I don't know if this takes care of that, but just was there talk about a new pool actually being built?
Pool's not on the agenda. John, you want to answer?
Well, the pool and the replacement of our pool has come up in our conversations because we've been looking at the next 5 years of what we need to do in the district to upgrade our facilities, and the pool is there, somewhere there on the list. So I can tell you that everyone here on the board and our administration knows that it's an important location there for many students, and we need to make sure we don't forget that it needs to be needs attention.
The ceiling, there are just pieces of it falling down, which I've heard can cause cancer, the material that it's made of, and it's just extremely humid and hot in there all the time.
Well, we don't want you to be concerned about that, and if you want to have a conversation with our building and ground supervisor about that, I'm sure he can tell you, that you don't have to be concerned about that. I don't want you to worry about your health.
I mean, I'm done there now.
Whatever, it certainly did help your swimming, I'll say that. You've done a great job. So whatever we've got in the pool, we've So, but thank you for your concern.
Yeah, of course.
And Mr. Case is in the back there, and if you would like to have a conversation with him about that, I don't want you to put out your health or the health of the up-and-coming swimmer. Okay?
Sure.
All right,
Thank you.
So in summary, there's no items on the athletic report to move to vote. I just want to say congrats again to the scholar athletes and the parents. Great job. Academics?
You have your K-12 textbooks that update in front of you. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to address them. There's a quick little update there. We're in the middle of Kansas State testing. We finished our first round of kindergarten registration, which yielded a pretty good number of students. There are some changes to our ESL protocols and policies coming up with the ESSA guidelines. There is a technology report included in here submitted by Ann and Lisa. I think you'll hear a little bit more from them this evening. There is also a community students and community service report submitted by Ms. Trinkle, and a new wellness policy also submitted by Ms. Trinkle. Do you have any questions on any of those items?
So Mrs. Vlasi and I will be co-presenting the next piece of our agenda this evening, which has to deal with Power School Analytics and Special Education. I will turn it over to Mrs. Vlasi to talk a bit about Power School Special Education, and I will cover the analytics portion of the presentation.
So to give you a little background with special ed, our current system that we're using right now between student services and the special ed department is IEP Writer, and this works independently of any of our student management system, which is Power School. The IEP Writer houses all of our evaluation reports, GIEPs, IEPs. And the people who have access to that, besides Ms. Trinkle and I, are really our admin professionals and our teachers and psychologists, which makes it a little cumbersome when we're meeting with IEP teams and all the members of the IEP teams that gather around the table having access to those documents. So a lot of the transferring of documents happens through email or hard copies. And to make sure that our student management system information is synced with our IEP Writer becomes cumbersome as well because they work so independently of each other. So we're proposing that we're using the Power School Special Ed module This works in unison with our Power School system that we already have, and this will allow all IEP members in the school system to have access to the GIEPs, evaluation reports, and IEPs. This also includes parents, so once something is finalized and implemented, parents who have access to Power School can also access those documents online. So if they're working from a phone conference or want to review it and haven't gotten a chance to prior to the meeting, they're able to access that online as well. And in the proposal, it kind of spells out the specifics that you have in front of you in regards to what that program offers our teachers and our administrators and parents as well in terms of working with that module hooked up to Power School. And the added bonus is right now, the cost of it is roughly $4,000 less to switch over to the Power School versus what we're using now with the IEP rate. Are there any questions?
Looks like a good idea. Yeah, a lot easier. A lot easier. I just have a question, not a question, but I just want to confirm that. So anyone that's in an IEP meeting, that this information will be able to be disseminated quickly to, I mean, we still have to make sure they're going to go in and look at it.
Absolutely. They have notification. So our teachers, whether they're regular or special ed, they'll receive notification that an IEP is in process, and when it's finalized, they'll also receive notification when they have an invitation to an IEP team meeting. It syncs with your Google Calendar. So most of our teachers use that in administrators. So once an invitation goes out, it will automatically sync to all those parties who are invited, and it will go into their Google Calendar as well. So they'll have access to going to Power School under their class list and be able to access any of the documents that are associated with that student.
Okay.
It also goes into the calendar.
It also goes into the calendar as well.
So I'll pick up where Jamie left off with the idea of not only cost savings, but the idea of linking directly to our student management system. And so right now in the proposal for Power School Analytics, which is another feature of Power School, we don't have a K-12 data warehouse. So when we talk about keeping longitudinal data from when a student is in our elementary buildings on up to our high school, we have several different databases that the state provides us with. We have our own databases in-house in FileMaker Pro. We have our student management system in Power School, and that's where all of these data pieces are, as well as hard copies in a student file folder. That information in itself is very difficult, number one, to access, and number two, to actually view holistically. So you can't see it, you have to search for it. Once you find it, you're going to spend some time looking at it. And so that informed decisions become very difficult to make. And when they are made, they take an extensive amount of time. So what we're looking to do is to move to Power School Analytics, which actually gives us the ability to monitor specific indicators. We can tell the system, hey, we want to make sure that any student who falls below a 70, who has 3 or 4 more days of illegal absence and 3 discipline referrals, gets a highlight check, and that we make sure that we follow up with that particular student at a building level. When we talk about 360-degree view of students, we can see the district, we can see the individual schools, and then we can even see the individual class that a student is in, depending on the subject matter, from using Power School Analytics. It also allows us to analyze several different types of data. As I mentioned before, if you have a database for historical data from PSSAs or PBOS growth, or benchmarks that the student is taking, and then we need to look at behavioral data, discipline, or attendance, we have to pull those from several different sources to arrange that. Our child study teams, a lot of time is spent preparing for these meetings by guidance counselors and principals and the like, and bringing that information to the table to say what sort of services, programming, or interventions does this student need. This would really very much streamline the process. It would be at their fingertips, right on their screen, and so that they can spend more time on talking about what they need to do to help the student than trying to figure out what's wrong. So I think this is an extremely crucial piece to the overall equation in providing multi-tiered system of supports for our kids and empowering our teachers as well as administrators and counselors to help make informed decisions about what our youngsters need K-12. We still have a remnants, as I mentioned in the proposal, we still have remnants of Pearson Informed within the district at the high school level. We decided to keep that on about 3 years ago because of the need to have graduation requirements listed in a system where they're easily maintained and easily accessible. That annual cost right now to the district is $12,000 just for the high school alone. That's $450 per student. We are going to recommend that we go to the analytics system, which is a replacement for Pearson Inform. It is a K-12 system. It is at an annual cost of $23,000, and it amounts to about $2.55 per student. So there is a significant cost savings there. And the key to this is, once again, it's easy access to what our teachers are currently using as our student information system. Once again, now they'll have access to IEPs, now they'll have access to their student grades and attendance in their grade book, and now right next to it they'll have their students' historical longitudinal data available to them in order to make decisions on the supports that our students need in the classroom. So it's a very important decision to make, and is one that we are recommending to take place in the very near future. There's a lot of work to be done to move all of this data into this system, and that is why it's important that we start to move this process ahead as quickly as possible. Any questions?
Mike, as you purchased this, I saw it's a 3-year contract.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So we basically purchased the base, and then you're going to pay 15%, 18% annually for maintenance? Or is that the fee of the $2.55 per student?
There's an annual fee to pay based upon our enrollment, and then that contract that we sign on for is that annual fee for 3 years. There is an incremental increase after each year according to the contract, which is 2 or 3%. I can't recall which one, but you have the contract in front of you, and it does highlight that. I believe it's 3%. So to answer your question, Mr. Fano, the cost is an annual cost, not a 3-year cost of the program.
And this is in the budget.
Correct. Any other questions?
Okay. So now we have Ms. Menzo.
Oh, I got one more.
Oh, sorry.
I know we're more excited about Mrs. Manzo, but I have something really exciting to share with. I have something just as exciting. They call it being a geek, right? So the assessment geek wants to share with the public and the board a really great opportunity for our kids and our teachers alike. And that is a K-8 assessment system that's going to allow us to do some good things in the classroom in determining some decisions that need to be made to support our students. So right now we are lacking in a system that allows us to basically track our students' progress other than the PSSAs. And that presents a problem for us because one state test given in April or early May in the case of the science to make determinations on what student needs are based upon that assessment and some other assessments along the way can be problematic. And so we started an investigation, and by we I mean not only the Central Mint team, but our coordinator of interventionists, Mr. Hess, and I took a look at what assessments are out there and available, and as was stated in the proposal, we looked really at 2 assessments. The NWEA's MAP assessments, it's the measurement of academic progress, and the Renaissance STAR assessments in both math and reading. We first started our investigation just scouring what other research has been done in the field to determine which one of these assessments was most reliable, valid, and accurate. And the MAP and the STAR are pretty even. What makes the STAR better is its efficiency, and that this assessment can be delivered to students in approximately 25 minutes or so, depending on the student, and it gives us that accurate depiction on what those student needs are. It gives us both criterion and norm referencing, so it tells us what skill sets and concepts kids are doing well in and which ones they need assistance with. And it also gives us a norm reference, which tells us where students stand amongst their peers in their school, in their state, and in the nation who are taking this assessment. This assessment can be given at 3 intervals or 4 intervals per year, or it can be used to progress monitor and be given 8 or 10 times during the course of the year for progress monitoring and goal setting. During our investigation, we also took a look at the implementation of it in the Nazareth Area School District. Mr. Hess and I spent some time there. We actually viewed students taking that particular assessment, and we talked about the pros and cons of both the MAP and the STAR. But once you look at some of these user reports that I've created, you're going to see that it really is user-friendly. This is great for parents, this is great for teachers, and great for administrators both at the school and district level. The other important piece to this is that there is a direct correlation to the PSSA assessments. So as we take these measurements, if you will, these temperatures of our students throughout the course of the year, we get an indicator of how they may perform on the PSSA assessment, and there's strong data that correlates the results of these assessments versus those state standardized tests. What's important is that regardless of what the state standardized test score says, is now we have a true indicator of growth for our students using these particular assessments. We know where students started at the beginning of the year, at the middle of the year, and end of the year at the very least, and we're able to use that data longitudinally to look at a student K to 8. One assessment, multi-purposes. So really what we want to be able to do is screen students. Identify very quickly what students are in need of interventions early on in the school year, and to be able to provide those interventions for the students. This assessment will also give us the ability to progress monitor those interventions without giving another tool, without using another method, but using the same particular assessment. There are planning reports that teachers may utilize to group students to find and identify specific skill sets. So it is both diagnostic in nature as well. Forecasting state test results, as I previously mentioned, and as I mentioned before, what's really important is being able to track growth. We know student in kindergarten, how they're performing in grade 1, 2, 3, 4, on up through our system, and we don't have to use just that data point of the PSSA. What's also really important about these assessments is the PSSA gives you a point in time that's after the fact, several months after the assessment. We get the results and we find out that student is scoring below basic or basic in July. We can't do a lot in July. We're our children. They're at home. So we need to be able to have quick turnaround time with an assessment to be able to use that data and information to provide supports for students immediately. And that's what this assessment system will give us the ability to do. Here's a nice image of the screening report. This can be done 3 to 4 times a year. This would be all students in our school. K to 8 would be taking this assessment. STAR has the early literacy, and the math. There are also custom assessments with the proposal that we put in there to allow for us to do some differentiation if we so need to. And there's some pricing adjustments because we get the entire suite. What we would do after the initial screening is prioritize our kids into 4 categories and determine what their needs are. And from there, we would then employ our multi-tiered system of supports. Progress monitoring and growth. Here's a nice portrait of one particular student. And if you could see those diamonds, those are each assessment that student has taken. Some of the reports will have a trend line. It'll give a percentile rank. So if we know a student is scoring 40 percentile or greater, then they're okay in the screening process. A student who may be below that, we may want to involve ourselves in some sort of intervention for that particular student. Instructional reports. This is great for our teachers. What you see here is there's a specific question that has a skill set there and a concept. What the teacher is able to do is utilize this to determine in their classroom what they may do with students. There's also direct links from this particular report that takes them to resources that they can use in the classroom with that group or with that individual student. The STAR 360 suite, as I mentioned before, contains early literacy, math, custom, and there's also STAR Spanish, which comes with the program, which is extremely important to us. We can use that assessment in the student's native language and assist us in getting a more accurate reading of that student's ability level without having language be a barrier in making those determinations. Bridging the assessment and instruction, I mean, this is really the heart of what we're trying to accomplish with this proposal and bringing on of STAR is to give our teachers, counselors, and the like actionable and insightful data, resources for our teachers to guide their instruction and to prepare students to meet college and career readiness. The dollars and cents. The initial cost of the district will be roughly $108,000. Our annual cost each year after will be roughly $86,000 or $13 per student. We intend to use $44,000 saved by moving to a different online learning program to help offset this annual cost. The funds will come from our Ready to Learn block grant and or Title I allocations for those schools. The and or is because some of our schools are Title I with Title I budgets and some of our other schools are not. If you're thinking about where that $44,000 is coming from, right now we are spending roughly $65,000, which has been budgeted for Study Island in the 16-17 school year. That includes benchmark assessments that we will no longer be using with this proposal at the middle school. Our bill then, so to speak, for Study Island next year, minus those Study Island benchmarks, would be $48,986. What we are looking to do is to change that Study Island program to provide the same sort of resources to our teachers and students, but with a different program at a much better value. That would be Boe Max, which we are currently piloting at the middle school and Eastern Area Academy. That is a K-8 system. The district license will cost only $8,526. K-8 district license. The USA Test Prep, because the Boe Max only goes K-8, the USA Test Prep will cover the Keystone Algebra, Literature, and Biology courses at the high school for a cost of $1,050. We also will need to maintain a science program of testing at the middle school to replace the Study Island benchmark at a tune of $975 for licenses in all three PSSA-related fields at the middle school as well. So that's in addition to a program that we currently do not have, and the total will be $10,551. So if you take what we currently budget at $65,000 minus the $10,500, we're looking at roughly $45,000 in savings that we are going to be applying to that annual $85,000 fee for the STAR assessments. These assessments, I'll just emphasize, these are the best of the best. So when you're going out there and cost-wise, the cost is very similar to other assessments that are in comparison to them. But right now, these are the best of the best in terms of what it allows our teachers to do with the data. Right? So we're not just giving an assessment, but we're giving teachers information that they can directly use to impact student performance and assist our students instructionally in the classroom. Questions from the assessment team for the assessment team?
I have a question. First of all, do not downplay assessment. It is the best thing. You are the most important person right now in the room. I do have a question about when we roll it out and how we're going to do training for the teachers. Is there a plan for that to make sure that everybody's
That's a
on board?
great question. And in the quote that was placed into your binders that was just submitted to me yesterday is our professional development package as well. It includes on-site. 2 days. It is more of a train-the-trainer model on the on-site visitations. You'll also see in the quote the Renaissance U. That Renaissance U is the Renaissance the company university. There are online tutorials and online learning that will come for a full year. In addition to that, there is at each school there will be 10 hours of additional support and data coaching that comes along with the Renaissance U package. So each school has that package. On the Renaissance website, there are a couple informal tutorials. Basically, a teacher will be able to go access that tutorial, go on and say, I'm looking for a report that shows me what to do with students when they're not doing well in this particular concept. There's a 10 or 15 minute tutorial, and there's a follow-up to that piece as well for Renaissance U. Our implementation plan, should board approve this at the next formal meeting, the implementation plan will include that professional development as well as those on-site visitations. So as soon as it's approved, we can book the dates and make sure that that plan is set up. But the professional development is in that particular package that's in front of you.
and access to all this information for them to make these informed decisions is user-friendly. I mean, it's going to be a snapshot they can see, or they can delve in deeper. I just want to make sure that the teachers, can utilize this as well. Even if they're trained and are excited about it, I want them to use it.
Absolutely. And we wouldn't recommend anything that we didn't ensure fidelity and implementation. Usage is the key, because without the usage, it's just an expenditure for the district. The teacher dashboard is another big selling point to this particular product. The teachers log into their dashboard, their students are there, their classes are there. Immediately after the students have completed the assessment, the data is right there in the student dashboard for the teacher by their class, and they're able then to decipher what students are doing, how much they're growing, and what specific skills and concepts they need to work on. Parents are going to love this. There is reporting that keeps them in the loop at intervals during the course of the year that says, look, here's how Johnny's doing now as compared to his peers. This is where we want students to be in terms of a trend line, and then they can track that data as a parent throughout the course of the year for both the reading and the math assessments. And that's a lot of the information that we've learned, gathering from other information. As a parent of a student in a school that has these assessments, it really perks your attention when you have the ability to see that growth of your child throughout the year, in addition to those other local assessments that the schools utilize.
I'm excited. You had me at assessment, so.
Yeah, absolutely. It really, it'll link that teacher and the parent on exactly how the student is performing. So the criterion reference pieces aren't necessarily reports we send home to folks, but we could. That's to let Johnny know he's doing well in fractions, but he needs assistance in here. Our report card does a very good job with that. But what a lot of parents want to know is, if Johnny's taking a test and Karen's taking a test and Jamie's taking a test, how are they all performing? And how is Johnny performing in relationship to those other students in his grade? And this assessment then does that. The other piece is, it's really about a growth mindset. Right? So if our students didn't meet proficient or advanced, does it mean they're not working? Absolutely not. They're working their tails off. But we're not measuring that. So this assessment gives us the ability to say, look, here's where John came in, right out of below basic category. And now he's working his tail off, and now he's making progression. And so the growth mindset is what allows us to focus our attention on this. And if they're not growing, then we need to do something different. And so that's really a focus with these assessments as well.
Mike, as you talked about that, you said about the parent notification. So in other words, week after week when tests are done, there could be notifications that would go out to the parent, or that the parents would have access to this information?
Yeah, we would have a summary report. There's maybe 5 or 6 reports that they create in our system that would talk about, these are good for parents. We would select as a district which ones are good. Some reports might be sent home. Others may be chosen to be used during parent-teacher conferences. So it's really up to the district to make that decision on which one of those reports. Parkland has a similar, or has an assessment. They may send one report. Nazareth has it. They may send a different report. So we have access to different reports. It's about what we want to send home to our families to provide them with information about what we're doing with their student in school.
The reason I ask that is because that way, if there's no surprises if they come in for a conference or anything. They already know ahead of time, and matter of fact, they may want to have a conference sooner.
Correct. They may see that data and call the children's counselor right away and say, hey, what's going on? That's a very good point, Mr. Rose. And we hope that happens.
That's awesome. Great job. Great work.
So now you're finished.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Sandra. iPad initiative.
That's Ms. Manzo's presentation. I just wanted to share with the board regarding the one-to-one iPad initiative that she'll be presenting this evening. This is something that we have really been discussing as an administration probably for the last decade, but more intentionally discussing since probably around last May. At that time, Ann McIntyre had done a presentation to the board on the digital learning plan, which led us into discussions through the summer where we added the supervisor of education technology at the high school specifically with the intent of ultimately implementing a one-to-one. So Lisa, what she's going to present this evening is a compilation of a lot of research, a lot of discussion, and getting to a point of being fully confident in presenting this to the board for implementation for next year.
Okay. Well, I want to go over our least presentation with you, but I wanted to start with this quote. I think this really happens what we're trying to do with the students at the high school and within our district. We're looking for excellence from our students, and we feel that iPads as a form of technology and going to be used as a learning tool will help our students to receive that engagement, the educational outcomes, all those things that we're looking for from them. The iPad is a tool, okay? So that's something that we need to focus upon, is that it is only a tool for teaching and for learning. Our main goal from this, though, is to provide equity to all the students within our district so that they have the same tools readily available to them so that they can, reach the levels of learning that we expect them to learn. Our e-learning program is based on the digital learning plan that Ann and Sue had created last year. And again, what we're looking to do is to make sure that the students within our district are prepared for college, for their future careers, and to be citizens, moving forth past their high school years. I really like this quote a lot because when we were looking at different devices, we were looking at Chromebooks. We've done a lot of research on Chromebooks versus iPads. And when we looked at a Chromebook was really used just because they're devices that are cheaper devices. They're really used readily for testing, and that's really it. When we went to a lot of different schools and we did our research, we found that one of the big drawbacks is they were not a holistic approach to the student. When we looked at iPads, one of the things that is great is the solution to build the entire child, to help them be more prepared for life outside of high school and as they move through the course of their career in education and beyond. It allows them to have the opportunity to create things that they normally would not have. So when we went to Apple in New York, we saw a lot of those things. Students will have the opportunities to create their own books, to make iBooks, to publish podcasts, to engage in different ways that they don't have currently. So, interfacing with students from around the world, being able to FaceTime or have a Google Hangout with professionals from around the country. Those are things that they do not have the opportunity to do currently, and that the iPads will allow them to do. I wanted to show you this video about the iPads because I think a lot of us, when we think about an iPad, we think of it almost like your phone. But there are so many more things that iPads can do now that I think you just really need to see.
So we're proposing that starting next school year, all the staff members, the instructional staff at the high school, and every single student at the high school will receive their own iPad. The purpose of this, again, though, is for instructional purposes. I used to teach psychology for many, many years, and I don't know if any of you know about Lev Vygotsky, but his whole proposal was the zone of proximal development, and what you can do alone versus what you can do with the guidance of a mentor or a teacher. When we look at the way that instruction is now, it's a one-size-fits-all instruction very often. iPads will allow us to differentiate and to personalize our students' learning experience. For those students that are ready to extend, they'll have the ability to extend. For students that need some remediation, they can be remediated, and it's going to allow the teacher to have more freedom in the classroom to engage every single student within that classroom in the same exact time. The reason why we've chosen to propose this Apple lease, we've had a long-standing relationship with Apple, and when we look at our annual cost for leasing, it's better for our budget to lease. It spreads the lease over 4 years, and at the end we have the option to lease to own, which we have done very often, and where we end up selling the devices, and that offsets our new budget that we're going to roll over. It is very important to refresh the technology. We've gone a very long time with using what we have, but right now we're at the point where we're up for a refresh, and this is what's going to fit for our kids. We're really lucky because Apple just put out a brand new iPad as of last week. So Apple has agreed to give us the new iPad at the same cost that we were looking at before. One of the other great things about the iPads and Apple products in general is at the end of the life cycle, we can sell back, and again, we have made contributions to our budget. So this is what the Apple quote looks like. So our proposal is to order 3,050 iPads, and that would cover the student enrollment for the next 4 years, as well as the instructional staff. We are looking at these covers, the STM Dux covers, which are basically military-grade covers to ensure that devices are safe and that they're going to be more resistant to breakage and those types of things. The JAMP management system will allow Sue and our tech staff to be able to push out software to the students and various apps that they would need. And then we some of these other services that they've included in our quote that will help to maintain and make sure that we have a smooth transition to the iPad. The quote that they have given to us is for a little bit over $1 million. We'd be financing about $1.2 million because that would include our final payment for the elementary lease cycle. Some of the deductions that we will have include $200,000 from past sales that we've had from our laptops, and about $200,000 to $225,000 in equipment sales. Our yearly finance amount then would be about $208,000, and then we have these additional lease payments from our middle school and our staff leases. So our our yearly total would be $569,000. Looking to the future again, the reason why we have proposed this is because we do feel like it's going to give our kids the opportunity to succeed and to have the opportunities to engage and to receive the type of education that we want them to have. We want them to create quality products. It shouldn't be about creating just projects anymore. We want them to have real-life experiences that will really prepare them for the workforce and for college and everything else. We are requesting board approval again for the lease payments that are in this agreement from Apple. Just to move forward again with this initiative to better our students' educational opportunities. Are there any questions?
I don't have a question, but I do have a statement. I was privileged and very honored to be part of the New York City trip that we went to Apple today. And when I say workshop, it was a workshop. We worked very hard. We created presentations. We used the iPads for 2 full days. And to understand how you could get resources to do your presentation. I mean, we were students. We teamed up. Tracy and I were a team doing a presentation. We had to create a business. It was really, really informational, and I couldn't wait for this to come out, because just to have students be able to do what we did and have the resources at their fingertips, being able to cite and quote things right from the iPad. The project-based learning option was just something cutting edge that I'm so excited that Easton could be part of that. you graduating seniors, I feel so bad because this is just a great opportunity for our students. Thank you all.
If I can just piggyback, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. Please.
Just to piggyback on what Lisa had said regarding creating and engaging students, anytime we're having a conversation about an iPad, putting iPads in every student's hands, there's obviously going to be questions and concerns that arise. And there will also be conversations about the fact that, well, when I went to school, I didn't have an iPad and I'm just fine. So I wanted to be able to address that because kids today are learning in an environment where information is at the tip of their fingers at all times. So no longer do we need to instruct students on facts, such as who developed the polio vaccine, or who was the explorer that founded Venezuela. Those aren't things we need to instruct students on anymore because they can go, hey Siri, who created the polio vaccine? And they have that information. It's our responsibility now as educators to make sure that we're engaging students to a place where they can take that information, apply it, analyze it, and create something based on that. So it is a different thought process as far as how we engage and teach students. But I just wanted to share kind of that perspective because there will be the people that will feel like we don't need to do something like this because we didn't learn that way. But we have to be responsive to the age that our students are growing up in. And just to go along with what Lisa had presented with the pricing, this is replacing our current lease for laptop carts at Easton High School. So currently now we have laptop carts throughout the building that are shared amongst the departments and that are only used when they're available and you sign up in advance to use the cart. So we're not able to meaningfully put technology in students' hands on a regular basis to get them to that depth of knowledge. This allows us to do that under within the confines of the current lease, the payments, and doing so in a much more meaningful way. So I just wanted to share that out as well. So I'm sorry.
Thank you for this presentation. It's great, and I'm new here, so this is the first that I've kind of seen of this.
You got a good meeting this one.
Yeah, right, exactly. I'm an instructional technologist, so this type of presentation is very near and dear to my heart. And I know a lot of the benefits that could be reaped from this because I've seen a lot of the studies that deal with things, as you say, like Chromebooks or with laptops or with iPads and whatnot. And I'm looking at the sample letter to parents, and what I see here, I see two sentences which talk about the goals of the one-to-one program. And it's not particularly detailed, it just says, we believe that for our students to be successful, they need to have the tools needed to do this. But you just made a very eloquent presentation on what's possible. And you spend two sentences talking about the goals, and then there's a bunch in the letter that tells parents and students what they either can't do with it or what the restrictions are on it, but there's not a lot in here about what they can do with it. So I can see how, and trust me, I understand how challenging it is to communicate the possibilities of technology in print. I mean, it's hard to kind of explicate sort of the options that are there. But, even just some of the things you said about the ability to collaborate with others around the world, the ability to make podcasts and videos, the ability to rapidly screen share and collaborate with classmates and share information and cast it up on a screen through an Apple TV, whatever. These things are great, and I think that they have the capacity to be transformative. I just don't know that if I'm reading this letter in a vacuum, that I'm going to be particularly excited. And I think that that's one of the things that maybe we should try to do. I don't know whether there's time, I assume there might be, to sort of edit this a bit.
There's definitely time.
But
I will say that it was a draft.
yes, and I totally get that. But I just want to encourage whoever is going to be drafting this to consider ways to tap into some of that excitement and some of those possibilities which you so, effectively demonstrate.
I will say if we do get board approval for this would be something that would be added to the district website. We would have seminars throughout the summer to meet with those students and their parents to present these types of things so that the parents could understand why we're doing this and the students can understand why we're doing this. We're not just handing them off a device just to give them a device. We're giving them a device because we want to empower them. So I do agree with you. I think we can tweak some of those things and some of the wording and try to get a little bit more enthusiasm out in our public.
Mine is a little bit different. One of the things we talked about here with the goals of the one-to-one program is to, in order for our students to be successful in careers, in college, and productive citizens. But part of the problem I have with some of this is we don't do enough career development for our students. We have a lot of kids who are seniors, and even to that point, they have no idea what career path they want to go because we need to do more in that area. So that's something that if we're going to do this, and that's one of our goals, then we need to start looking at that area also.
I agree, and I think it does give us the capacity to do so because students will have better opportunities to investigate jobs, to be able to talk to a professional within that field using the technology, those types of things, which right now we don't have. So we do have some career programs at the high school, but I think we could definitely use this as a way to strengthen those programming so that the students have more authentic opportunities to investigate what they're interested in.
Right. And I understand that. I'm looking at it though as you're talking 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, and so they need to be pushed a little bit. So that's where I want to see if we're going to do this, that we're going to make that more of a consideration to put that efforts into that area.
I have just one other quick question. Have you looked into, or has Apple or whatever, I assume that we wouldn't be the first district to try this. I assume that there are other districts doing this. What is the percentage of loss?
It's actually, that was one of the things that we were most fearful of, I think, when we went on our school visits, and it is very surprisingly low because for most of these students, this is maybe the best thing that they have. So it's probably the thing that they hold most dear to them, so they take very good care of it. They are going to be managed, tracked, and filtered when they're outside the school, so we will have those capabilities through the software on the device. So we went to Lebanon School District, and their school district is demographically very similar to ours. Their free and reduced lunch was about 81%, we're at around 50%, and they said that they barely had any loss. Lancaster School District also, same type of thing, and we also spoke to the Apple executive who manages all of New York City public schools, and they had a very small amount. So I figured New York City public schools can handle this, and they're experiencing a small amount of loss and damage. I think that our students here will experience the same thing.
Lisa, could you just expound a little bit further on the control, if that's the right word that we're going to use? Because I think one of the concerns that people would have is that students might be able to access inappropriate sites and so forth. Could you talk about that for sure?
One part of the quote that was in there was the jam management software, and Billy experienced this when we were out in New York. And one of the things that's great for the teacher is that they can control to a much higher extent what's happening in the classroom with technology. So the teacher can look at their iPad and then decide to lock the student's screen. So if I see Billy and Billy's looking at FaceTime right now, if she had that on there, if she was trying to look at YouTube or something, you can lock the screen, call her up and say, hey Billy, you're not doing the right thing right now. I need you to do this instead. The teacher can push out any sort of content that they want to individual students, the entire class, and then there's going to be essentially a software menu, and students can only download apps from that software menu that we're recommending. So we're not going to have a free-for-all for our students. Again, it is going to be under our current filter system, so they won't be able to get on to anything that they haven't been able to get onto now. Again, it will be something that we can track when they're at home, so that filter will go home with them. So today, it's strictly for educational purposes. This is not just a phone or something else for them to use. This is just for education.
Could you also talk a bit about, let's say I'm a parent and I don't want my student or my child to bring this device home, for whatever reasons. Or let's say that there may be a reason why the district might not want that child, every child taken home. maybe there's issues. What are we going to do for those students when they come back to school and they're competing in the classroom and learning in the classroom?
We're going to have a procedure that the writing lab is going to be managed every single day by a paraprofessional or two, depending on the number of those students that may need to leave it in school. And they'll have a sign-in time in the morning and a sign-out time at the end of the school day. So they'll have the device throughout the school day, but if their parent does not wish for them to take it home, it can just remain in the school.
And then the next morning come back in, check, get the device, and then so no one or everyone is going to have that. And I think the important one of the important words you used there was equity. That we're going to make sure that everybody has the same opportunities to use these to help with learning. I was just going to say just a few things that. What you see here tonight and what you've heard here tonight are what I believe to be some of the most dynamic ideas related to technology and bringing technology into the schoolhouse. And the focus for all of this is on raising achievement levels in school. And that is our clear and guiding focus, if you will, on everything we're doing. The remodeling program at Paxinosa and the idea of bringing a clinic there. This idea of being able to get information to parents easily through technology. The idea of handing devices to kids in school. There's only one goal for all of this, and that's to raise achievement levels and the success levels of our kids. So when we look at test scores and we try to consider those scores as they are today, and we've got kids who are going to be with us 3, 4, 5 years from now, what kind of world are they going to walk out into? And hopefully this is going to give them the best opportunity available. These are giant steps into future classrooms and future educational models, if you will, and I'm really pleased at the focus that our administrators and our staff have placed on these things, and I hope that you've taken notice to the fact that everyone has paid attention to costs, because that's as important as anything else. We focused on costs here because we know that we have to watch our spending, and that we are very, very. We've got a responsibility to be careful. So every district, I think, is facing these challenges, is to become more technologically on board with everything. But we've got to watch. Everybody's got to watch costs, and. I'm really pleased with the analysis that these folks have done with costs. You can see that what was the original price tag for some of these things, they've done the analysis, they've compared, and we're able to do these things much less than what we thought we would have to spend. So I thank everybody for that.
I just got one more quick question, I'm sorry. Will students be able to access their Power School?
Yeah.
And they can bring it home to their parents as well?
app on their iPads for them, so yeah.
Twofold.
Okay, a couple questions. Because you look at the equipment and everything, if the student doesn't have internet at home, will they have the ability to access?
That's one of the nice things about an iPad versus a Chromebook. It's not internet dependent, so there are a lot of things that they can still do, using the native apps that are on the iPad that they wouldn't be able to do if they had a Chromebook. Also, since we are using a lot of Google products within our school district, the teacher can put them offline, the student can put them offline, so they can work on them in that capacity, and then when they get back to school, it would just sync. We do want to offer up and create a list for students of Wi-Fi spots in our school district that they would be able to go to. I had talked to Mayor Panto back in the fall about this a little bit, but I'd like to talk to him again just to, create a more comprehensive list for students of safe areas that they can go to access Wi-Fi.
And as you start looking at books, because another area of savings, I assume, instead of talking about hardcover books anymore, we're going to be purchasing the books to put on the application on the iPads too.
I think that we will look at that when the textbook renewal cycle comes up. And the other thing that I think is really phenomenal about the iPads is that teachers can also make their own iBooks now. So the iBooks editor app on our computers allows them to make their own content. So what we can see now is a teacher putting text on there. They can put various media clips in there. So there might be some subjects where we don't need to purchase textbooks at all anymore because the teacher has enough capability to do what they want to do.
So as you're looking ahead, because 10 years ago I saw this in some school districts, okay, where it was in elementary schools already. So we haven't gotten there yet. But how do you see this being implemented in elementary and also getting the textbooks on there, because as I said, I saw this more than 10 years ago where the students came home, they had their iPad and they popped it open, they had their homework assignment, they did their homework, they actually did the work on the computer, and then the next day, like you said, it synced up and everything.
At the elementary level, I think we're going to have to look at, and the middle school, we're going to have to look at what we can afford and what we can sustain. So it would be great if we could be K-12 one-to-one, but it just might not be something that we financially can handle at this point. But I think it's something we have been already in talks about, looking at long-term projections and what we can do with our students. Those are things that we would have to talk with the rest of the directors and central office to see, how we can come together. Because if there are textbooks online, we can put some of those budgets together with iPads. I think we can, get creative and see what we can do for the students.
So when they're storing, they're saving files, right? It's like an iCloud, so there's storage space. So what happens if we run out of storage space? The cost on that can go up?
We're using our Google Drive for everything, and ours is unlimited, and so we really don't have to worry about that concern.
And like this doesn't impact all the other agreements we have for the other buildings and everything. They continue on as well.
No, we roll every time we renew a lease. We're on a 4-year cycle, and we roll the new lease into that payment. You saw on the screen there is all factored into the budget amount.
And this payment's not much more than what we're paying today.
Okay, I think we had a student that had a question too. I normally would make you come up to the podium, but you have a question? Go ahead.
Oh, could I stand up?
Sure.
I'm Kenneth Bertui. I think, in my opinion, I think that this whole iPad thing is actually a pretty great idea, and I hope you guys pass it on for next year, for the next school year for 2017/18. I think it's like of course it's very practical, like for the like you're trying to get ready for college because we're gonna end up doing it. We're gonna end up doing it in college anyways. But I'm surprised that no one said this yet. I think it's also very important for like people with disabilities, like if they have like visual disabilities, like I have a visual disability and I use an iPad in the classroom. I find it very beneficial. It helps a lot. There's also for like hearing as well. So that's why I find very accommodating about Apple, because Apple accommodates for those people on like Chromebook. Like they have software like for Galaxies as well, but it doesn't work as well as Apple. They're pretty self-explanatory when they point out how to use it. So I think it's very beneficial to use.
Thank you. Thanks for that. We're going to bring him back.
I'll just a couple things real quick. One, to piggyback off of what Superintendent Reinhardt said. My hope is that most families will allow this to come home, because it gives me pause to think that if the district or teachers or the courses that these students are enrolled in do leverage these, and they put books on them, instructors make iBooks that they can take home, or if they're expected to potentially do homework on these, if they don't have access to that at home and they only have access to it during school hours, that could be a serious detriment for students to access the material. Now, I don't know whether you have any information from the other districts that you've looked at about what percentage don't take them home or do not have the ability to do that.
It was the vast majority of the other districts, the students took them home.
Yeah,
it's a very, very small percentage that would ever say no.
I would hope that that's the case, because I can see that then in an effort to be more equitable, that you all of a sudden cause severe inequity for the students who, for whatever reason, can't take them home. But I'll also just add to what the student said. Working at several universities and colleges, this is where we're headed. It is not uncommon for certain courses or certain departments, or even in some cases entire campuses, to basically require students to BYOD, whether that's a laptop, Chromebook, iPad. But there is this sort of base expectation that they come in with some forms of digital literacy, and I think that these devices will help to forward that goal and will help prepare our students better for that.
Some. No. Exciting.
Okay, now, anyone from the public who would like to be heard on academic agenda items? Anybody else from the public?
Well, actually, I have another one. So, if any damages happen to these devices, how is that going to work out?
Okay. We are going to have a technology fee that we're looking at that would cover those incidents. If it's something malicious, so we have the same type of agreement as a staff member, so if I would decide that I'm just going to take my nice MacBook and just throw it on the ground, and you see me throwing it on the ground, I'm financially responsible. So it's just the same thing for a student. They decide to take their iPad and just chuck it down the stairs and it breaks. They're on the line for that. If it's some sort of accidental damage, again, though, we do have an in-house tech who would handle those types of things, and that's why we have him there, is that he can fix them. We don't want, one of our greatest fears from our end is that students try to fix the devices on their own and then they end up doing more damage.
What if it was stolen?
If it's stolen, you would have to file a police report within 48 hours, notify the school, those types of things, come to school with the police report, and then we could issue a replacement based upon that.
And that's all in the letter?
That's in it's all on the documents online.
I think we also have the ability to...
We have the ability to track them too. So that would be one of the important things. If it was stolen, that a student would report it immediately so that we can try to track it. The tracking software, if any of you have an iPhone, on the Find My iPhone is actually very, very good. So we can get pretty precise location from that. You can ping it so you can hear, because sometimes, I wouldn't say it would be uncommon for one student to pick up another student's iPad by accident. Maybe you take two of them and then you think it's stolen, and then we just ping it and we find it in another classroom. So they are going to be tracked, though. So if a theft would occur, it is very important for the student and the family to report it to the school and to the authorities right away. And we do have our school resource officer within the school and our head of security and our assistant supervisor of security.
And Lisa, every one of these will be labeled very clearly, right?
Yes. We're going to get some very large asset tags on the back. It's going to have a clear cover that's going to say, these are owned, managed, and filtered by the Easton Area School District so that people can see them. So say a student goes somewhere for free Wi-Fi, they leave their iPad on the table for a minute. I think it will be very, very clear to whoever sees that's part of our school district. If they would take it to a pawn shop or something like that, it would come back immediately to us because it's got our asset tag on there, and we can track it.
Lisa, if it is reported stolen, we also have the ability to shut it down, making it...
Yes. Yeah, we can make it a brick, basically. It becomes inoperable.
The insurance and everything, are we going to be self-funded on that, or is that buying, per se, a policy?
I'm not sure how it's going to work, but it is in the budget under our educational software and maintenance account.
Oh, another one. Okay.
Are you removing the computers in the writing lab and library?
We are going to remove those because every student will have their own device now. So the library and the writing lab are going to be a little bit different than they are now. So those are going to be more centers to work with teachers that have been trained. So right now in the building we have 10 Google certified teachers. They're going to be there as supports for you as students and the teachers so that we can have more technology-infused lessons and we can help the students to get to those higher levels of engagement and learning that we want them to have. There will still be some labs in the school because they just can't disappear. So there's certain programs that only work on a desktop computer. So our tech ed wing, we have a lot of the engineering courses. Those will remain down there. Our PLTW is very, very strong in the school, and we would not want to remove those from you and from you having those opportunities. Music will still have some computers. So some will still remain, but again, that's still, all students will still have the device at their hands.
I was going to just say off of that. So students would still have access to some kind of keyboard. Because I'm thinking about when you're writing a long report. It'd be very difficult, on an iPad, to kind of do that, especially if you're in your classroom. It's
we have considered that, and I will say we went to many different schools and we've talked about that, and A lot of the schools invested in buying all these wireless keyboards and the students never use them. They've grown up in this age of having tablets, and a lot of them are used to them. We will allow students, if they want to get their own Bluetooth keyboard, I saw some on Amazon on the deal of the day today for $10. There will be some in the school for certain students that require them as an accommodation, that they will be able to access them, but we're not going to be purchasing 2,800 for all of the kids. I've had kids for years now writing research papers, 10, 12-page research papers on their phones, on bus trips.
My thumb's hurt already.
I could never do it, but they have grown up in a different era than we have.
Anybody that did speak before the end of the meeting, please write your name and to the podium, okay? Thanks. All right. Any other questions or comments?
I'm just curious here. I think it's great. I think technology is very important. I have to say that I really do think technology is important. And I do think when I first saw $1 million, I was like, oh my gosh, $1 million. How are we going to come up with that as a school district? I'm glad to see that there's some things that were done to kind of offset some of the costs. But I'm just curious. I know somebody mentioned since we won't be using Dell anymore, that'll also that this would take the payment from the computers that we were buying. Is that what I heard?
From the iPad cards.
We have
Currently we have
MacBook.
MacBook
We have
cards throughout
Mac,
the school. This will replace the need for having those.
Okay.
So we're just supplanting them with the iPads in everyone's hand.
Okay. So, and was the initial, what were we paying prior to this, prior to the 500 and balance?
The annual lease payment, this increases the annual lease payment by $20,000.
Okay. I think that's good to know. I think parents would want to know that.
Yeah.
Because I think that is a question that's actually being asked.
Okay. Thank you. Looks like there's no more questions or comments. So in summary, we had a K-12 update, a presentation of Power School and Analytics, a presentation about the Renaissance Star System, and information about the iPad initiative. At an upcoming board meeting, I guess the following will be put up on the agenda, switching to Power School Special Education, purchasing the analytics system, lease the Apple computer system, and purchase the Renaissance Star system for math and reading. I believe that's it, right? There's a lot today.
If you could use the term, that's it.
Okay, and that's it. So I guess now we're building from there.
Yep, thank you. Mr. Oakley's not here, I will take that. And we'll go to Mr. Simonetta, who's going to...
Yes. Actually, I'm going to turn it over to Josh Price from Community Engineering to give the board an update on all of our morning meetings, culmination of what to do for our 5-year capital project and where we're moving.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Simonetta. Tonight in particular, I'm not going to touch on the entire portfolio of projects we have coming up. I just wanted to focus on a couple items, one related to the Paxinosa renovation. I hate to just bring change orders in front of the board because there's a lot of exciting stuff happening at Paxinosa as we move into the spring and get ready for the district to start moving in with their new furniture and to get set up. It's starting to look really fantastic over there, especially in the 3-story classroom wing. So we can come to the next meeting prepared with some more photos and updates. For tonight, I just wanted to get right down to business as far as change orders go. Mr. Reinhardt did just say that we are trying to be very cost conscious. Obviously, it's been that way from the start with the design of the Paxinosa project. After the bids came in very favorably, we do have the opportunity with some funds that are available in contingency to do some things that we think are very beneficial at this point and that the district has identified are good ideas to do as we move into the later stages of construction here. 3 items in particular, actually 2 items that affect Farfield Electric, the electrical contractor, as well as Communication Systems Incorporated. They are a vendor through the PEPM state purchasing system. CSI is providing a lot of these security components district-wide. We started implementing a Genetech security platform as part of the security vestibule projects over the past couple of years. So there's a portion that's related to that as well. So starting at the top, local sound system installations were identified to be really enhanced in 3 spaces in particular: the cafeteria, the media center, and the gym. This would be for the purposes of meetings, of student observation, and being able to better get through to students in a larger setting. So basically, it's much more robust sound systems in those 3 spaces. That cost is to Farfield Electric. They would be providing the entire package for those 3 spaces. That's at a cost of $62,783. Second item, again, has to do with data components, some security components, as well as intercom systems. It's additional wireless access points, additional data jacks throughout the entire building, really kind of beefing up the data infrastructure throughout the building. There are also approximately 20 security cameras and related software licenses that would be included with those. That equipment is furnished by CSI. That's why they have the cost as well. So it's furnished by CSI, and it's actually installed by the electrical contractor on site, which is Farfield. So in total, with those 2 items, it's $87,000 from Farfield and just under $34,000 from CSI. We're going to talk a little bit about PlanCon tonight briefly for the 2 elementary projects coming up. PlanCon, again, is a program through the Department of Education that we go through as part of a publicly bid project of these sizes. Part D of PlanCon basically is a bid phase budget. In that bid phase approved budget, we had a contingency amount of $1.5 million. So if you're asking, well, how are we going to pay for these positions? These are candidates that would be coming out of that $1.5 million contingency amount. Previously, the board had approved some other expenditures from that amount, mostly related to correcting and beefing up the building structure of the Paxinosa original 1925 building. Encountered quite a few issues related to the structure, concrete, steel, etc. So some money has already been assigned for that. The above items that we just talked about are $183,708. And while that's certainly nothing to sneeze at, the good news is that of that contingency, there's still a remaining amount of just over $550,000. Hopefully, we will be able to not use that and turn that back over to the district at the end of the project.
I just have a real quick question. The cameras and the expanse of the data system, our team went over all of that too to make sure that we weren't overdoing it or under need.
Excellent point. So again, in the design phase, we really tried to make sure that we did not go overboard with what was identified. We did go through a series of meetings looking at the systems prior to installation. At that point, the district said, hey, you know what, let's really take another look at this and see if it's worth it now to implement these. We had a series of meetings going back and forth, how many do we need? Ultimately, I'd say probably cut the numbers about in half to what they initially were. We have evaluated the cost proposals along with the architect and their consultants. We are comfortable that the prices submitted are fair, that the district is not getting gouged for the work. So we're comfortable bringing this scope and these prices forward.
I appreciate that.
So this will be on the agenda for the 18th for approval. Okay. I'm sorry, can you just back up, Andy, real quick? At the top, I also noted there's another PlanCon form that will be executed along with the change orders. It's a Part I form. It's basically just another submission that has to happen to PDE as part of the change order process. So you'll see a document labeled Part I that just has to do with the change order submission. Okay, so moving on to the Cheston and Palmer projects, again related to the PlanCon process, are two items that are also going to be on the agenda for the April board meeting. That is the submission of Parts A and Part B for these two projects. So I showed you a listing here of what exactly the process includes through the design and bid phase. There are later stages taking us through construction and even post-construction that have to do with final project accounting and those types of things. We'll get to those at a later point. But for now, Part A and Part B have to do with the sort of layout and the design of the educational spaces within the buildings. We call it project justification. It basically says how many classrooms of a certain size are we looking at. The preliminary schematic budget, which I'm sorry is too small to read up there, but that is the same as it had been at the last approval through the committee process. At Cheston, that is $31,875,000. At Palmer, it is $33,281,250. So those numbers will be reflected up front in those PlanCon documents in case you, the board members, would have any question the budget breakdown. Okay. So those basically just have to be voted on to be submitted to the state. PDE will then review the documents and we'll go through the entire PlanCon sequence that you can see on the board. Part B is submitted along with Part A. That's more of a schematic. So Mr. Galliato here from Alloy 5 Architects prepares an overall floor plan, which he's excited to show you in a few minutes. Again, I get the top numbers and costs, and he gets to show you all the fun stuff. But it's basically just showing PDE, here's how the building preliminarily is laid out. Here are the educational spaces at the certain square footages that are included in the submission. Okay, so again, the board just basically has to vote to submit those documents to PDE. Okay. We can talk more about the later stages as we get closer to those documents. Thanks, Ann. Okay, if there are no other questions, I'll turn it over to Randy, and he can take you through some of the updates in the schematic phase with Cheston and Palmer.
Sure. Thank you, Josh. Thank you. Do I have a clicker or?
That's me. I'm the clicker.
Just blink it in. So thank you. Since January.
Just do it, you'll get it.
So since January, we've met with the committee every Wednesday morning, I guess every other Wednesday morning for a couple of hours to discuss the design of Cheston and Palmer. And I'm going to show you the conclusion of the schematic design on both of those projects. It really was a collaborative process. I think everyone at the table had great ideas, and I think we have a good final product that we're going to show you tonight. So I'll start with Cheston, and if you're familiar with the site, this blue little dash is the existing building. And what's unique about that site is there are paper streets within Pioneer Field, the green space. So streets that were planned to be built within the city grid that never were executed. So I'll give Mr. Case the credit when we were looking at placing this building. One of the big issues with the school has always been where's the front door. So I think we're going to solve that problem by extending Milton Street down through the center of the site and making this a pedestrian way with the front door in the center. I think it works out well. We're going to look at doing parent drop-off on Cole Street and bus drop-off here on Reynolds. And I think it works out well. Cheston really, for those of you who know the site, lends itself well to building this new school while the existing school stays functional. It helps out a lot with phasing. So in the floor plans, I will say that our main goal was efficiency. We don't want wasted space, and this plan specifically is a great example of that. So we've tried to break the school up into three really pieces. Classroom wing, you'll see up here. Collaborative learning area, which is the heart of the school. In the front of the school, which is the activity and administrative spaces, which are really the community spaces as well. So you'll see how this works a little better. There's a pedestrian way, which is the Milton Street extension. There's the front door here, the parent drop-off, bus drop-off, so those are separated. Then there's a main sort of spline that connects the front of the school to the back of the school. Right here in the heart is art, library, and the music spaces. The orange is the cafeteria, and the green is the gym. So all of these spaces up front here are open to the community. So it truly is a community school. The school will be able to be locked down at this point, and the whole front half open. There are a couple of other pieces to that. I think that work well, that allow us different access points around the building. The second floor, well, this is actually the lower level, so it presented an opportunity to enter on an intermediate level. So you only have to go down one flight of stairs to a floor and up to the third floor. So kindergarten and first grade are in the lower level, and that will be on Lincoln Street. And you can see here some collaborative learning spaces as well. Next slide. And the upper level, which will be the third floor, is really the same. So I said efficiency. All these classrooms are really the same footprint. The kindergarten and first grade classrooms are a little larger, but it's extremely efficient when you're stacking services and stacking space. Next slide. All right, so that concludes Cheston. Is there any questions on Cheston at all? You want me to go back to the two more? Any questions on Cheston? No? Palmer School was a little different ballgame when it comes to site planning, the new facility at the school. We did have a meeting with Palmer Township, and we wanted to look at some efficiencies within the site planning as they are going through and implementing their master plan for their community center. So we tried to, we looked at a couple different options for the school as far as building a new school, leaving the existing school there, keeping a small piece of the existing school, and just found that a new building was just more efficient and cost effective. So we are looking at building a new structure on the site of the existing school. So that school will be torn down, and we are going to share a parking lot here with the township. This parking lot, all this shaded space here is owned by Palmer Township, and they're constructing a new parking lot to the north that we're going to use that. So the floor plan shakes out a little differently here. Our goal was to keep the front door as close to the buses as possible. There's a lot more buses here at Palmer than at Cheston. So we designed the school to have two entrance points. The first main entrance point is here, which is the door everyone will use all day long. And that's where kids will get dropped off from buses and enter. So it's only about 40 feet away. And then this side entrance here is the parent drop-off. So kids will get dropped off by their parents, and they'll come in the sidewalk here. We tried to take a look at this school. You know, the existing floor plan is very sprawling, so we tried to condense it and build a heart of the school like we did at Cheston. So we did that here. This has an L-shaped classroom wing with one center circulating stairs, so every kid comes to the same spot to use the bathroom, to go up and down, and the same with the teacher. So it's really meant to bring everyone together. That school now, like I mentioned, is so sprawling, everyone is stuck in their own wing, so we wanted to break that barrier. And again, the community school, so this green area, the gym, cafeteria, going to be locked down, and this will all be used by the public after school hours. And again, you'll see those very efficient stacked floor plans. This school's a little different because we're stacking 3 stories on top of each other given the site conditions, but nonetheless, it's all very efficiently planned. So, thank you. Happy to take any questions. I think that sums up 100 hours worth of meetings in 5 minutes. Any questions?
Thank you, Brooke. That was, I mean, even though I lived through the Wednesday meetings, it just comes together.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public to be heard on buildings and grounds agenda items? None. So in summary, we are going to move for board vote for change orders for Paxinosa and for Plan Con A and for Plan Con B for both Palmer and Cheston. Okay, ready? We're going to move on to finance. Mr. Fainall.
Mr. Mineta, we have a few items here. That time of year.
Yeah, while we're on finance, dovetailing off the end of buildings and ground, I just want to let the board know, because I know we're all anticipating, the May meeting, we'll have our financial consultant here talk about and advise on how we're going to fund these projects. As I said last time, there were a number of options we were looking at, and we met this week, we got a better idea of the drawdown schedule for money throughout the project for the next couple of years. So I anticipate we'll be able to break up the borrowing and not have to borrow $100 million all at once, which also allows us, as we're moving forward in this so-called 5-year plan, allows us to adapt or change if we had, or take away some of the projects that are on the list. So, but we will have a detailed presentation at our May meeting on the funding and what's required to move forward. Food service contract renewal. You all received a copy of the letter from Chartwell's, our current program. I would say that financially, Chartwell's has met their obligation, their guarantee, and much more. They are again raising the guarantee for next year, and at this stage, I mean, it's a long process for rebidding. We are allowed 2 more years after this one to keep them. But we are assessing the overall program, and at this stage, though, given where we're at and the success, I would ask the board to accept the recommendation to approve the contract for next year as well.
Any questions?
We have in here the comparison to last year, the prices, I believe. Am I right? I couldn't put my fingers on it right away, but somewhere in here we have a document which they submitted last year. I wanted the board just to see that the prices have gone up a little bit. They haven't gone up that much. I know you are all very concerned about that.
I was wrong. Yeah, that's going to be the second item as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes, that's right.
They're in the first item.
Got it.
Maybe explain so some people know it, is what the guarantee means and how that works.
The guarantee means that the program is, at the very least, needs to be self-sufficient. We awarded the contract a couple of years ago to Chartwell's. The guarantee was $100,000 profit to the district. They've exceeded that the following year, went to 125, and now we're going to do guarantee under 50. Every year they've exceeded what they guaranteed coming back to the district. Understand now that we cannot use that money. That money has to be maintained in the cafeteria program where we can enhance programs or purchase equipment needed for them. We can't take that money and put it in just an equipment. This will be the second renewal, so this will be the third year.
So do we have like a comparison of going to back to Charles as far as like lunches purchased, that kind of stuff?
We could, I'm sure we have, we can get, our charter county, how they could be able to report on the reimbursements. Yeah, we can do it. How far do you want to go back? Last year was the best?
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe comparison to last year's.
Okay. Yeah, from that last year, moving forward.
Okay. Thank you.
And on that, the next item is the real equity plan. The reason, believe me, if we were making profits and the money was guaranteed, we're making the money, we would not be raising the prices to the students. But under the federal law, there is a real equity requirement that we are to, over a course of time, bring our meal prices up to a certain level. So every year, we have been required to raise our prices, even with what we're doing, going to next year, everything's going up 10 cents a meal, we're still under the amount the federal government is requiring, but they're allowing us to do this in a certain amount of time. So again, we're making profit up to the program, but we are required to raise the price. That's something we choose to do. So those two items will be on for approval.
Mike, in your pricing, back on the first item, the list of prices and everything, but typically we've also seen sometimes in the past with all the various snacks and the other components of cost. Will you be able to send that out?
The a la carte, yes. Those prices will not be reviewed.
Okay.
It's just a real prices that we have to do. Any other questions?
I was going to say rate for auditing.
Sure. We've had Palmer Company as our auditors for some time before I came on board here as well. We had we do 3-year terms with them. The last contract, which expires at the end of the 15-16 audit schedule, which they just completed, the cost was $29,250 annually. They are, and I'm recommending, continue with the firm. They know our district. They've been a partner with us for a number of years. They're raising the fee to $29,950. Again, that fee will remain for 3 years. Each year, it's an annual fee.
What was it again, Mike?
$29,250. I'll also say that given some of the changes and the personnel items that occurred in the business office, we have called on them a number of times to come in and do some upkeep, some analyzing, auditing in between the full-fledged audit. So again, they've done that. The building is very respectful to the district situation. And I will say a little bit of research that given our size, it's more than competitive for the $140 million plus budget. I'll be asking to renew them for another 3 years.
Any questions on that? Keep on going. Preliminary budget.
Preliminary budget. Okay. Well, actually, okay, thanks. I can do that. Did you do that, Randy? So we're at the stage now. We talked about going for exceptions. We don't know. We still don't know where we're at with the state, with the aid. But at this stage of the game, on our calendar of the preliminary budget in April, we're presenting a budget to the board now that brings us back down to index. If you recall, last month, 2 months ago, we asked for 3.5% increase on the taxes. We had to do that if we were going to apply for exceptions, which we did. By the way, we were approved for a little over $1.9 million in exceptions. Again, that's the state saying, given our expenses, if we wanted to, without voter referendum, exceed the index, we could do that. Because we qualify. But we're presenting a budget tonight that brings us back down to index, and which is 3.2%. Which correspondingly is also the increase in the budget. I think it's important to note that in this budget that we're presenting includes additional money to start funding the new bond referendums. It includes full-day kindergarten. And it includes all the other increased costs that are on the major items anyway, page 3 of the slide. So I guess what I'm saying is, with our costs, and additional money for the charter school. That's important to note, that those costs are affecting our budget negatively every year. I think it's important to note that we are moving forward, we're increasing our programs, we're addressing our facility needs, and we're doing it, again, it is a tax increase, but we are doing it within the confines of the index.
Mike, you mentioned the new borrowing would be included in there. That's based on the 2-year borrowing, correct? The 2-year increase to cover the borrowing?
Now, that is the original number. Where the increase to the budget is $200,000 in the borrowing. There was money left over in the budget account as a result of all the refunding we did over the years. We kept that line constant like we do with the lease purchase, the capital lease. So we only needed to increase the budget by $200,000 to put an additional $800,000 towards borrowing for the first year. Now you saw, remember on one of the slides from a few months ago, we have to add $500,000 to the budget for the next 4 years to borrow $100 million.
And if we're only doing $50 million,
and we work on that, for next year. If we know that before the end of this budget cycle, we can adjust accordingly. But if we have projects the 2 projects tonight we saw that total $60 million plus, that based on the draw schedule will be needed. We'll start needing some of that money next year. So what's in the budget is the opportunity to start funding those projects.
but not for the total of 500.
Well, no, you have to do it each year for the next 4 years.
That's it. Even if you only do 50.
But what you will put in for the 18-19 budget will be less than what you need to put in for this budget. In other words, if you only borrow 50, we know next year we're going to only borrow 50 for all the projects, and I don't need to put $800,000 in for the 18-19 budget.
And that would then at least have us to that level before that 2 years.
It all depends on what you borrow.
Go with 50. Stick with, use the number 50. If you're borrowing 50, we would be able to implement that over in a 2-year period cycle. 17, 18,
Well, that's what's
18,
going to be
19.
determined. What's in there now is a projection that we're borrowing $100 million. The first year of a 4-year cycle of funding a $100 million bond.
And that's what you have in the base.
That's what I have in here now. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, let me get back.
And you said the charter school?
Charter school increase is in there.
Okay.
Yeah, we know that's a moving target every year.
We don't know what that is right now, though, right?
Yes.
Well, you don't know what it is, but could you offer up what we have to plan for now because of that?
Well, we increased the budget just for the new charter school of almost $1.4 million.
$1.4 million less. People should know that. $1.4 million less in our budget next year.
That's the increase. We spent over $4 million for charter school.
So do you have that spreadsheet where we had that broken out one?
I don't. I do have, the next slide is a pie chart And a charter is included in there along with other budgets that.
Can we get that spreadsheet?
Yeah, you
for next-
can.
Or by the time the board meeting comes around here in April?
In 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can have it probably by the end of next week. I think I mentioned that the audit was just completed, and there were some adjustments done by the auditors with some of the accounts, and I wanted to make sure that it matches up to 15, 16 actual expenditures. But that's why it's not available now. So, if you could just go to that, the pie chart. So, what Bob's referring to is a spreadsheet really listing some of the items and how it breaks down to what we have control of, what we have no control of, little control, and then what we have our own control of. If we go through that, the top item, the top section up there, bonds, police technology, other budgets, the IU, CIT, community college, and charter school. I mean, that alone right there is 20% of our budget. We're locked in prices. Now, we can stop doing police technology, we can stop doing some things, but essentially, they're locked in. The next item is also locked in at 70% of the budget, which are the contractual obligations. And then, if you go down further, it fluctuates, but not much, but only 2% for utilities and insurance, miscellaneous budgets, and then all other areas only make up 5% of the budget. Essentially, you're looking at 90% of our budget, where we really have very little control.
You can send that presentation out somewhere?
Yes.
Questions?
Oh, no, almost done. So we're back down to, as I said, index. The impact on the average assessed home is a $118 increase. And then, again, this came finalized. I didn't put this out before because I wanted to wait for the audit to be finalized. If you look at our, I'm sorry, Ed, next slide. Our fund balance, which I will say is, and we're in good shape with our fund balance. We have that committed area, which is for those increases that we really can afford during the budget, whether it's PSERS, whether it's benefits. We have built that up. I think the lowest it was the last few years was 14 million. We've been able to build that up through our budget, through our cost savings. We have assigned at 2 million, and then we have our unassigned at 7.5. Now the unassigned is basically money that we can do what we want with. The state allows up to 8% of your budget for unassigned, and we are below that by several million. Then we have our capital reserve at 5.8, and our capital projects, and that's just strictly for the projects, the bonds. And again, this is the estimate projection at the end of fiscal year 18 with this budget.
Mike, when you pull from there, you replenish, right?
Well,
You try to replenish.
We've been able, if you recall, we've talked about appropriating fund balance to balance our budgets over the last couple of years. There was only 1 year in the last 3 where we actually had to use that. The revenues exceeded projections, as well as the expenses were below what we budgeted. So that was able to keep the fund balance stable.
Because if you look at those in your fund balance or in your reserves, the money for Ponce is where?
Part of capital projects. That's a projection at the end of 17-18 school year, because we're going to be spending a lot of that money that's in there. Right now, that's probably 14 million.
Okay.
And then we have just wanted to show the timeline, where we came from. Again, we did get approved for 1.9 million, but we're not recommending that we use any of it. We talked about our goal is to approve our final budget in May. We can look at that, we can decide. I think the capital project discussion may play into that. I'd like to do it in May, and we hope that we can. But we have until June 30th to do it. Now,
I have one for you, Mike. Now, like you mentioned earlier, we had the CIT budget, we had the IU, we had the community college budget, and the library budget is now outside of our budget.
Correct.
So we're at 3.2, depending what they come in, that could be 3.3 or 3.4% potentially to go up.
Right.
And we still have to approve it even though it's outside of our budget, correct?
you have to approve the amount to be raised by taxes, yes. And they will have to come present that budget.
Do you have any idea when they're coming to present, especially
No,
for things to finalize?
I do know that Mr. Ford and Mr. Bartholomew are talking about that, but I'll update the board and maybe Friday. I'll see if we get some information on the plan.
I suggest letting them know there's a deadline so that we have that information. Exactly.
Now,
If we're gonna do
understand
that-
too, you said that outside the budget, I don't want anybody to panic. If they go up 3.2%, it's on their portion of the budget.
Right.
So it's not going to raise, $118 to the average home.
Right, but I think part of this is having everybody understand,
Yes.
because of the confusion last year, is that we are not deciding on their budget. They decide on their budget, and we are only collecting the taxes for them.
Correct. But it's still the board's
Decision.
fiduciary responsibility
Right.
to have carte blanche.
If something would come in and look way out of line, like at 10, 12, 15, then we have the right to question and stop.
Correct. You have the right to question it anyway, but certainly.
Other questions on the budget? Hearing none. Anything else you have, Mike?
I don't.
Any questions from the public in the audience? Not seeing any hands. Basically, for the next, for the voting agenda, we're going to have the food service contract, meal price equity requirement that will be posted in there, and also the auditing services upon them. And that's all that will be on for voting.
Preliminary budget.
Preliminary budget.
And the preliminary budget. That's all I have. That concludes that.
Thank you. We move on to any other business. That's next. We already asked. So no other business. We'll move on to number 7. Public to be heard on non-agenda items. Anybody from the public to be heard on non-agenda items? Before I adjourn, I just want to remind you, if you did speak or ask questions, to please go up and sign in. Sorry that I didn't enforce that. Okay, so can I get a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Opposed? 8:03.